The 8th of October 2023, you're very welcome back to Real True Education, Not Fake News. Electric cars, insurance issues. Now, I tend to think that this whole green thing that we're all been struggling with over the last 20 years, and particularly in the last 10 years, where everybody, including children, all school children, old lads, old lads, young lads, and everything else, all went mad green and began to panic that we were going to all be afraid with global warming and all this thing. I know it was driven by the media, and I know that this happened before with religions. I mean, in my lifetime there was religious euphoria. I mean, people would be going to mass early in the morning, every week morning, and a church and everything else. And young ladies that would now want to be airline pilots and big jobs in nursing and medical and all that would go to be nuns. And among the things they do was scrub the floors. And they'd be praying at 3 o'clock in the morning and all this sort of thing. I mean, that quit. If you suggested that to young women today, they would not even entertain you. But we had to live through that period where that type of excessive religious adherence took place. And it wasn't nice looking at it. And unbelievable things happened when people took it too seriously, took babies of girls and all this sort of thing, and Magdalene laundries and all that. But the green agenda is the successor to that. It's this big panic that we must, particularly in Ireland, oh, we're Irish, and we must do something about it. And no matter what they do, whether it's true or not, and I don't believe it is, we can do sweet damn all about it in reality. What happened was a generation of mine, perhaps, and a little earlier, had children, and those children grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth, and when they did, they didn't have to worry about things. When I was a boy, I used to milk the cow, and maybe 2 cows in the morning when before I'd walk off to school, which was 2 3/4 miles away. Sometimes 3 miles, depending on which route I took. So I would have to milk the cows, bring in the milk, and put it, strain it, and get it into the can before I'd come in and get my egg and my cup of tea and my slice of bread or a bit of porridge and head off on foot into school, right? So, I mean, it wasn't easy. And we'd be working for farmers, particularly picking potatoes and all this stuff. Some of it was enjoyable. So you had to work, and we were grounded. The modern generation has none of that, and they're all the poorer for it. Maybe it's not their fault, but they're all gone nuts on the climate racket. And as a result, you have all this old green nonsense, but you also have the electric cars. And I believe they are going to come down. No way will there be electric cars on the road in 5 years' time. They won't be there. I know myself that they're not green for a start. They're very hard on the environment. They use fuel the same as every other. But there are other issues to think. Even if people are virtue signaling, oh, look at me, I got an electric car. Now, I said before, the judge of whether electric cars work is not whether people buy one. It's whether they buy a second one. And if you're doing inquiries into whether they buy a second one or not, you need to make sure, you need to ask nicely, did the person themselves pay for it? A lot of companies are giving electric cars to virtue signal their green credentials to their employees. So if you meet a salesman come around to the shop and he's selling stuff and you say, oh, you have an electric car, oh, it's great. He may be paying nothing for it. It's no different to him than the Garda with a patrol car. It's supplied by the employer. So please understand that, right? And then you need to understand people who do buy them, do they buy a second one? But I want to tell you something here now, and it'll not be that long. There's a big problem with insurance. There's an article in the Telegraph which is behind a paywall, and it's by Daniel Wilson, and he says John Lewis has stopped offering insurance to electric car drivers amid fear of costs. Now, I'll switch that off, and the reason why there's a fear of costs is if you are in an accident in an electric car, it can't be left with other cars in the car park in the garage. It's taken to a garage that will cope with it, and they have to special parking procedure, a special parking area, and they have to pay rates on that car park. So if you're living in Limerick or Dundalk or Dublin and they have a big car park to cater for electric cars, they'll be paying rates on that car park and they'll be paying other things because it's needed for the electric cars. You need something like, I think it's 15 metres each side of an electric car. You can't park them together. There is also the issue that if you bring your car on a ferry and it goes on fire, are you accountable for all the ones beside it? If you park in the shopping centre and it goes on fire and it puts a big lorry next door to you on fire, or a van, are you accountable? If it puts 3 ordinary cars on fire or another electric car, who is carrying the cost? And it's my opinion, it's the cause, it's the person who's negligent, and the other car owners can sue you, and when they sue the comprehensive insurance, the insurance company will sue for top up of the underwriter or whatever. In other words, you could be accountable for fires other than your own. Now there's all these issues. You cannot take them to an ordinary garageman to fix, and if they get into a crash, you can't get a panel beater to beat them out, because they won't let an unqualified person, unless they have carried out the lithium battery safety test, and there's not too many with that, and you have to use special tools, and the whole thing is a totally different animal altogether than going and getting your car fixed. Now in the Guardian, there is an article. The quotes were over now. So here's the article here, and I'll read it out to you. The quotes were 5,000 or more. Electric vehicle owners face soaring insurance costs. Like my car, I think it's gone up this year, but it was about $660 last year with a no terms bonus. Now, drivers who ditch petrol and diesel cars to help the planet, and they don't help the planet, face huge price increases in premiums. Driving an electric car should be a win-win, sounds like Eamon Ryan, saving money and the planet. Now, this is in the left-wing Guardian newspaper. So David was shocked when the insurance on his Tesla Model Y came up for renewal. The Aviva and Aviva, that's an insurance company, I think this is British, refused to cover him again, while several other brands turned him away. When David did secure a deal, the annual cost had rocketed from $1,200. I only pay something like $650 on a diesel car, and they were all my associates are all under the 700, to more than £5,000 sterling. This is England, obviously, Britain, right? 5,000. My insurer was Aviva from July 22 to July 23, but when it was coming up for renewal, I received a letter stating that they would not be covering the Tesla Model Y anymore. We don't want you, says David. I am a member of the Tesla UK Owners Forum, and lots of other people seem to have the same issue. Now, I have no sympathy. You electric vehicle people were warned. I went out of my way to warn you. Old fellas and old people and mature people, that's your problem. But for young people, I would not like to see some person young getting caught. So really, I'm trying to advise young people here. The older people, damn well, fit you right. I hope it goes up to 50,000. That's my attitude. That's the reverse psychology I use. But anyway, in the Facebook group, members share stories of horror renewal quotes, which with increases range from 60% up to 1,100 to a staggering 940%. Get that right? 940%. A jump from 447 to 4,661. According to a screen grab shared by one driver. This all adds up to me. This is perfect sense, and I think where it's 4,661 now pounds sterling, it will be possibly as high as 20,000 in a year or two. I spent weeks on every comparison site, as well as trying individual insurers and specialist brokers, but either they wouldn't cover the car or the quotes were 5,000 pounds sterling or more. That's about €5,500, right? Says David, whose only change in circumstances was 3 points on his licence. That could be for just exceeding the speed limit. That's not for really serious thing. So it's not much really there. A few points on the license. Now, Privilege, Vitality, AXA, and specialist broker Adrian Flux were among the brands he found were unable to insure him at this time. We can't insure you at this time, and you want to go tomorrow. Before he nailed down a policy with Direct Line, all be at a price. The best quote I could get was from Direct Line at £4,500 sterling. He says, adding that the total cost exceeded £5,000 once the interest for paying monthly was included. Because who has got that kind of money to go? Yes, he had to pay 4,500, but he had to borrow that money, and the interest will come to 5,000 when all is paid. Have I made that clear? Hope you can understand me there, folks. Okay, but it was not only owners of Model Ys, with which a starting price of about 45,000 was the best-selling electric car in the UK. That's for the car itself. This is the Model Y Tesla. Is 45,000 to buy them new, right? Who were finding that, like the government, insurers are wobbling about the cost of net zero. They see, the media will never tell you what the cost is. What you're hearing from me now will come only from me, but there's a few people telling it. I'm often one of the only people in the world who identify the problem immediately. I'm quick to spot it. Alex Gerlish, Gerlis, who bought a smart EQ 444 last year, had insurance from John Lewis Finance, but before the mid-August renewal date, it advised him it would not be able to offer renewal because it is not insuring electric cars anymore. That's the situation with John Lewis Insurance. It comes to all motorists facing soaring insurance costs. It doesn't come to all motorists. It comes to all electric motorists. It doesn't come to diesel and petrol motorists. With the prices said to be at an all-time high, a recent cost of living bulletin from the Office of the National Statistics revealed that the price of car insurance, which for many Britons is one of the biggest household bills, is up by 52% over the last 12 months. I can't argue with that because my insurance isn't up for another while. I can't argue with that. So, but anyway, car insurance, there is inflation, prices are up. But I mean, even at 52%, that would drive my insurance up to about it'd still be under 1,000, about €900 or €920. But these ones are going up to 5,000, right? However, the average mass bigger increases for electric car owners. This devil of averages. What is wrong with people talking about averages? I mean, if your heart beats every time on as it should, in your 70-year lifespan, we'll say for 70 years or 75 or whatever, and it misses 5 beats, you're dead. When you're age 14, you're dead. Average means nothing. It's a baloney thing. However, this average mass bigger increases for electric car owners, according to Confused.com. Its figures derived from quotes show that insurance premiums for electric vehicles were 75% or £402 sterling higher than this time last year at a typical of £959 sterling. Meanwhile, the petrol and diesel car increases is 29% or 192, taking the figure to 848. We'll soon see about that, but I that's not, you see, that's what this crowd has printed. How true is that? What good is that if you can't get a quote at all? So if you see there's a conflict. Is there someone that will insure an electric car at the prices these are saying, right? $959. If they are, why does someone have to pay 5,000? Okay. Lewis Thomas, a motor expert at Confused.com, and you know, I took on some of the bonkers.ie thing on the cost of wind energy, and they were soon put in their place. They weren't right at all. A motor expert at Confused.com says, despite electric vehicles becoming more common, well, what has it to do with it, how common they are still the minority on UK roads, and insurers have less experience settling premiums for these types of cars. I wouldn't accept that. I think insurers rightly know that these are enormous. You could be paying out compensation, 50 times the cost of ordinary, normal internal combustion engine cars. With expensive features and upgrades now standard for electric cars, what the hell good are the extensive features? Our sat-navs and our baloney and a television screen. Oh, who the hell wants it? When you better be able to get around and have a heater. You won't even have that. The cost of repairs is higher too, which is having a knock-on effect on premiums, she added. But that's self-explanatory. Analysis said claims costs are 25% higher for electric cars. That I don't believe that for 1 minute. I'd say they're 250 times higher. Claims costs are 25 times higher for electric cars, and that they also take about 14% longer to repair than a diesel or petrol equivalent. Now, you may know well they're not telling us the whole story, but they still take longer to repair. The cost and availability of parts is a factor, and I made the case of a person with a Nissan Leaf on the misery getting the part from China, and when I arrived it wasn't even of right. Don't talk about that. The cost and availability of parts is a factor, explains Paul Baxter, the chief executive of the new brand, the Green Insurer. Right, a new brand. Now, this lad's going to the Green Insurer. We need to get on to him and see what will he do. I'll guarantee you he won't do much, but he may for a while till he gets a few claims. There is also concern around the batteries and that damage, especially to the underside, can be expensive to fix. You bet your sweet life, and you're lucky it doesn't go on fire. There's also the issue around technology and skills to repair networks, and that's true. There's nobody able to repair them. Baxter says, indeed, the Institute of the Motor Industry has predicted a shortage of about 1,600 electric vehicle qualified mechanics by 2032. Sorry, I'm after making a mistake and I won't go back in the video. The shortage for the UK is 16,000. 16000. 10 times the mistake I made. I apologise. Right? Motor has predicted a shortage of 16,000 vehicle mechanics. These have to be qualified and certified. It can't be done. There'll be nobody to fix them. They'll be blocking gaps for keeping cattle from running out through gaps. Qualified by 2032. That's 9 years away. They've not got to the stage that they are with traditional cars in terms of expertise. Well, sure, anyone can fix a car. Sure, I can put a starter in a car and never got any qualification. Sure, many people do their own repairs. Sure, a lot of backstreet garagemen do a good job and do the basics for you. You can't do that with electric car. You have to go through the whole courses and updates and everything else. If you dent a door, that's straightforward. But if something has damaged the battery in particular, they haven't caught up with that yet. And they won't be caught up with it because it's nothing like what a petrol car will do or a diesel car. Despite the potential drawbacks that come with being an early adopter, high fuel prices as well as concerns about the environment have resulted in more drivers opting for electric cars. It's not higher fuel prices. You throw a few litres of petrol or diesel in your car and away you go. It's not higher fuel prices. It's ignorance. It's ignorance and brainwashing by the media that they're going to learn to their cost. Okay, so he says it's just they just haven't caught up and all that, but that the price of fuel is a factor in choosing an electric car. You'll pay more, if anything, for the charging of your electric car. Despite the potential drawbacks that comes with being an early adopter, high fuel prices as well as concerns about the environment, well, you're not fixing the environment with them, have resulted in more drivers opting for electric cars, with almost 2,700 new vehicles registered in the UK last year, an increase of 40%. Let's see how long it continues. Faced with the big increase in insurance costs, David, who is in his 30s and lives in Bradford, looked at ending his lease, even though he loves a car he describes as an iPhone on wheels. And this is the thing about the electric cars. It's all, oh, an iPhone on wheels. Oh, there's lovely electrics. Who the hell wants it? We have television at home in our own houses. We have smartphones. We have laptops. If we want amusement type of high flying lights and all that, we can go to an amusement arcade. We can go to the circus and get on the chairplanes. What the hell good is it? Isn't the purpose of your car to get you from A to B safely and without too much expense? The monthly payments are more than 600, but to terminate would involve paying a huge fee. He'd pull out if he could. I'm fortunate that I earned a decent wage and I don't have a mortgage. I say there's no mortgage. See, and that has increased as well because of the rent. I'm renting at the minute. I checked to see if I could change the car model, but would have to pay an 8,000 forfeit. So there you are. He got some kind of a forfeit, and I think if you buy one and you get the grant and you don't keep it, you have to hand it all back. 5 weeks into the direct line policy, we are able to find a cheaper deal with a smaller upfront deposit with Admiral, which reduced the cost by €75 to 404 a month. Now, a lot of that is very confusing, a lot of that. But we see that there's an attempt being made here to water down the impact of all this, and it's early stages yet. Folks, what the man says is, he had to pay 5,000 when he paid interest on his loans, or 4,500 before he paid it. And he shopped around, and that's the bottom line. What would happen if you invest everything in an electric car and they tell you we don't want to insure you at all? That's the risk you have. I don't care whether people get it or not. My job here is to warn people. I warned a person who bought a Nissan Leaf, and it wasn't their main car, but they bought it as a general runaround car, and also for going to work, one of the couple, and they would never, ever again touch it with a barge pole. I know another man, a friend of mine, whose daughter bought a Toyota hybrid, 2.2 litre diesel. Nobody would ever consider such a beast of a yoke, 2.5 litre diesel, and never again. I know another lady, well-to-do lady, who has a GLC, I think it is. It's a Merc. It's a diesel hybrid, which makes a lot more sense because a diesel engine is more economical and better. But again, she says that it's running on the engine most of the time, and she doesn't really know if she's saving anything when the diesel to charge the battery is taken into account. And don't forget with hybrids, the fuel you're charging the hybrid with is excisable. You have to have motor fuel in your car. Whereas if you charged it with a generator at home, you could possibly use agricultural diesel, even though that may not strictly be legal or whatever, or even off the mains. So it's highly technical in that way. Anyway, my job is to warn people. I wouldn't touch an electric car with a barge pole, and I'm not interested in anyone who buys it for gadgets. In a day and age when you can go into any shop and buy gadgets yourself, is not right in the head. That's my advice. My advice is have nothing to do with them. I fear them. If I see one, I try to identify it. I won't park near them. And I have people who have them, and I've given them hammers so they can break their way out. And I hear now there's a commercial a producer somewhere in Ireland that's producing hammers that you can carry it inside your electric car or your hybrid and break the windows. And that's a really good thing. I highly recommend it. I have made a few out of small lump hammers. That's it. I hate them. I think it's a scam. I think if you go online and search, you'll see they're a scam. And the quicker we get this green nightmare over and get back to a bit of normality, the better. So we'll see you back for something else. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thank you very much.